That was the one thing that Jez Corden from Windows Central, he was like, "Oh, Phil Spencer's loving that game that they just canceled."
Right. Yeah, of course.
The main guy that could keep it going.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the NerdNest podcast. I am, of course, your host, Bill Fairchild, and I'm joined today by Russ Crandall. How's it going, Russ?
Good. You know, I was just thinking, because we don't have Rich here, we're only 75% manned, which means that we're a C average right now. We got to really step it up this week.
And I'm joined by Cary Gollum. What's up, Cary?
Hey, what's going on, guys? How's everything?
C average. Were you above C in school or below C in school?
Quick story. I almost failed in my Algebra 2 class. I was failing the entire year. And at my final exam, I had to get everything right. Mostly everything. I needed a 92, and I got a 96 on my final exam. And it was a Scantron. You remember the Scantron machines? We had to
Yeah, I remember. I used them about 10 years ago. We were still using them.
So the math teacher, I hand it to her, and she looks at me, and she puts it through the machine, and it shows 96 or whatever. She goes, "Where were you this entire year?" And I was like, "I passed." Ay! And I just moonwalked out of that room.
His very own Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, I think, right there.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You went back in time. You found, Pythagoras, and he brought him back for his final for his final exam. But we're not. Go ahead.
No, I didn't do any. Yeah, so I was definitely through no fault of my own. I just didn't apply myself. I just was dazed and confused.
Yeah, dazed and confused. Well, we've got a lot of stuff to talk about, including Xbox ridiculous shenanigans. The European Stop Killing Games initiative has been going, and we're going to talk about that. Plus, we've got some more things to talk about as well that we haven't decided yet what we're going to talk about. We'll do that during the show. But I wanted to start off with the Stop Killing Games initiative, which is happening over in Europe right now. It's currently sitting at 1.2 million signatures. And for those of you who are unaware what the Stop Killing Games initiative is, essentially, like the simple version is it's like a customer movement that's dedicated towards the idea that, hey, when we buy these games, we should, if you're going to shut down your games, that's fine if you don't want to support a game anymore. That's not what people are complaining about. What they're complaining about is that we paid money for these games and then suddenly we have no way to play them. So could you at least give us this, the ability to roll our own servers? Not that they're asking the developers to roll the servers, but for the people who want to continue to play these games to roll their own servers. A very good example would be, oh shoot, what's the name of that racing game that kind of kicked this whole thing off? I forgot its name.
Oh, The Crew.
Yeah, The Crew. Was it the Crew or The Crew 2?
I believe it's Crew 2.
Yeah. So The Crew 2, which is basically an online only racing game, they shut down their servers, and even though you paid for that game, now you can't play that game anymore. And, there could be arguments back and forth about, well, you got this much time with the game and, how many people are really still playing that game. I can understand that developers and publishers might say, well, it's too expensive for us to keep running these servers if nobody's playing. But for them to not offer us an alternative, that's what the Stop Killing Games initiative is about. Russ, I mean, your entire YouTube channel is built on video game preservation. And I'm curious, what are your thoughts on the EU initiative hitting 1.2 million signatures?
I think it's awesome. I had been following it for a while, and there was a good amount of time where people were saying it's never going to hit 1 million, right? And 1 million was needed for it to get an actual formal look, Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden it just kind of took off. A bunch of people made videos about it. I saw Cary posted about it, and I was like, oh, I should post about it too. So I posted about it. And I think it was around 800,000 at that time. And then bam, 1 million, then 1.2. And it all needed to be done by the end of this month. And so it's really awesome, the amount of people who just kind of got behind it. But from a preservation standpoint, yeah, this is a really tricky kind of thing because it's these are games that exist online, right? And once they're no longer able to be hosted, then the game disappears. It's not a matter of a ROM file or anything. And you know, a lot of people, in addition to paying for a game, a lot of people are like way into these games where they're paying into the ecosystem and they're buying all the DLC and skins and stuff. And so that some of these people have kind of big investments in being able to enjoy that game for years. And then all of a sudden, if it disappears, it is kind of sucky, you know. And I kind of see both sides, you know, the company as well as the customer trying to find a middle ground. And I think this kind of starts that conversation or at least enhances it. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing is that everyone that talks about this stuff, you have a lot of developers that I see like piping up. They're like, you want me to just run a server forever and bear the cost? And everyone's like, no, no one is asking that. Like everyone's like, but there has been some nuance to this conversation, stuff that I was like mindful of, like, because you always have like, there may be some middleware that is being used that they can't themselves give away because it's another company owns it. Like they might be using some middleware that does something, right? Like, I don't know, chat moderation, right? That they didn't develop, but they are using it. Obviously they can't give that out, but there's some shim in there that would just be broken now. So there's like lots of stuff like that. Like I was mindful of. But one thing that someone brought up that I really wasn't thinking of was like, if they just open source the server end of it, they might open themselves up to like patent trolls that would be like, oh, this is our patent and now you owe us all this money from stuff that you stole from us. And I was like, oh, I could see that happening because that's what they do. So it's like I think everyone is in full agreement that we don't even want the server end to be open source, but at least the blueprints of the database schema, how the database is laid out, like, whatever it is, it could be completely empty. Just give us the database schema. Give us like the building blocks of the starting part so that here's all the stuff. Go ahead and make, because people have been emulating the server side stuff forever with nothing. Like they're just literally hacking at like, trying to solve an invisible puzzle. And they've been getting success. So you have like the EverQuest emulator that has had success based on just brute force. So at least give a leg up. Like, here, this is the stuff that we use and how it all intertwines. Give it like a schema of how that looks. And that is also a big help. If they can't do it for whatever reason, fine. Because like it's hard for us to ask of them to do all this when they had no plans to do it from the beginning. And it's easier for someone to be like, oh, this is the law now, so let me make my server-side stuff this way so that I can decouple all this stuff in a fancy way. If it's just a giant mess, like a knotted thing, I can understand. And I think ultimately what it comes down to, and like we have been repeated often, is that no one is suggesting or like demanding, like, give us exactly what you're running. Everyone's like, look, if it's going to open you up to a can of worms legally, or you just can't do it because of XYZ reason, fine. But going forward, this has to stop. This cannot continue. Like we're heading in a direction that, it's not just an amusement park where you built a ride and now it's not taking up physical space. It's I think, I don't know. It's disheartening. I get it. And I'm not the type of person that typically likes, like, I'm for regulation, but there's a nice balance that has to happen. And you don't want something, for instance, when the US was like in the 90s, right? When they're like, oh, there's too much violence in video games. And they were starting to heat up. Then the video game industry was like, screw it, ESRB, we'll do it ourselves. Don't worry about it, guys. We got this. We don't want you stepping in. So the video game industry made their own rating system without government. Like the government was starting, but the government never actually finished because the ESRB and all the other stuff was formed by game companies before it went too far. And now there's like customers asking this, and we're going so far as to like, please government, step in because these guys are jokers.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know. I mean, yes, we are like, people are asking European governments to step in and do something, but maybe just the threat of the European governments doing something that game publishers and developers would say, okay, you know what? Just to keep them off our back, just like we did with the ESRB,
Right.
we're going to react to this and make it better. It seems like that's what people would want.
Yeah.
But it seems like they are instead trying to band together to fight against it, to lobby against it. Yeah, and I got this this article over at PC Gamer, and basically it's the European Game Publishers Group, which Russ gave me a link to show who's in that. I haven't looked at it yet. I'm going to look at it in a second. But they said, this is what the European Game Publisher Group said. Private servers are not always a viable alternative option for players, as the protections we put in place to secure players' data, remove illegal content, and combat unsafe community content would not exist and would leave rights holders liable. In addition, many titles designed from the ground up to be online only. In effect, those proposals would curtail developer choice by making these video games prohibitively expensive to create. Okay, so first off, that first part there, where they say basically, look, we got a bunch of stuff on our servers. We can't just give that out. That's a paper tiger argument. We're not asking for them to give us the servers. We're asking them to let us make our own servers. So if we wanted to have player data to be protected, if we wanted to be able to remove illegal content, if we wanted to be able to combat unsafe community content, well, we could do that. We don't need their stuff to do that. So that argument doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Russ, do you think that's a viable argument, or am I reading it the wrong way?
Yeah, well, I think the argument is that, like, hey, you know, we put in a lot of protections, and if we made it a private server, we would no longer be able to protect it in the same way. But I don't know. That's like them saying, well, personal data should only be held by us big corporations. You know, we can't trust anybody else, right? When I'm like, I kind of feel the opposite. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like a big corporation is going to be more apt to sell off my data or lose my data or whatever. And so, yeah, I get what they're saying, but it's kind of like what Cary was mentioning before. It's like the argument is, well, it's too messy. You know, it's just too messy. We can't do that, you know, but we're not specifically saying every previous game needs to be backwards supported. We're basically saying going forward, you know, help us out. I think that the name of this movement is the right name. Stop killing games, not how dare you kill the games you already killed. You know what I mean? Like, that's not the focus here. The focus is on the future. And so it's, I don't know. I agree. It's a paper tiger argument saying, well, it's too messy. It's too hard. Well, then make a better system. You know, there's got to be a way.
Yeah, so then if we look at the Xbox, why did I say X? Oh, because it was posted on Twitter, and it says X. So this is a tweet from Paul Tassi. I think I'm saying his name right.
Yeah, he's at Forbes, I think. Yeah.
Basically, the people who are part of the board of the European Game Publisher Group is Cannon Pence from Epic Games, Cary Hopkins from EA, Ian Mattingly from Activision, Clemens, I'm not going to try and pronounce that name, from Embracer Group, Kumar Jamil from Microsoft, and Clemens, well, that's weird, two Clemens, but they're spelled different, Clemens Meyer-Wegelen from Nintendo of Europe. So those are the people who are on the board. Oh, and Hester Woodcliff is the chair from Warner Brothers Games. Those are the people who are on the board of the company that gave that argument. Cary, when you hear the people who are on that, does that surprise you at all that their stance is, well, that's too hard for us to do?
No, like for all of them, I could see Activision and a lot of Microsoft stuff. They're just like, oh, goodness gracious, we have so much stuff. For Nintendo, they don't really have all that much, but the little stuff that they do have, I could see them just be like, no way. No way that's happening. We're already, you know, not great with the little stuff. We'll be horrific with the big stuff. Yeah, when you take a look at those groups, I could see it. But like, there's like a lot of older games. Like we even have the Call of Duty World War II that came to PC, and there's a bunch of people getting hacked because they didn't change anything, because the back end stuff all ultimately ends in peer-to-peer transactions anyway. So that's one of the bigger reasons why that happens. So I don't know. When you look at these things, I can understand the fear is that if this regulation happens, it may be broad and sweeping. So that is the fear that these companies have, is that it could go too far. And it could. It literally.
Yeah. Of course. It could pass and we could be like, shit, that was a bad idea because of all of the regulations that suddenly happened that we didn't foresee.
Right. And I think it's like everyone wants it to be reasonable, but when it gets into like the legislation and all of that, it's like, whoa. Wait, what is that? What'd you say? Scratch that off. We don't want that. Like, no, it's already gone. It's already sent. Like, oh no.
Especially because the people who write the laws are almost always completely out of touch with technology and like video games and this kind of stuff. Like, they don't understand this stuff. You know, we got that guy telling us that the internet was a series of tubes, a while back, that kind of thing. That's why you don't want the governments to regulate. But it's clear that these companies aren't going to self-regulate.
Right.
What I would love to see is to have these companies get together with the, I know I say the Stop Killing Games movement, but it's a website made by a YouTuber. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard for them to get together with that person. But we've got to find something. Otherwise, like, video games are art, and art should be preserved. I'm tempted to put Indiana Jones on the thumbnail of this that says it belongs in a museum, you know? Like, that's all I can think of is, like, we keep losing these games, and they just disappear. Good ones and bad ones. They're all just vanishing.
Yeah, I think when you really get down to it, even I think it's Accursed Farms, right? Is the
I think that's the name of the guy who made it.
Even when you get down to just if he was the ambassador, I don't think that he is. There's not any real malice or anything that is. Everything that was already spelled out is logical and fine. So I think him just like as an ambassador for someone to like, hey, is this all good, and flesh that out ESRB style, and then like just decouple from Accursed Farms. Or like he was like, hey, this is what we're gonna do. Do you agree? And then like, okay, well, great. Now we're gonna go back and do our own thing. But the whole lobby movement suggests that they're gonna still just try to, clip this, at the before it buds. And I don't know. I have no idea where this is going to go. I'm glad that we passed the signatures and it's still rising because of the fear that there may be fake signatures or stuff. And then when it tallies, so that's what I was relayed to me. But this is all like, in the EU, and the UK has a separate page. So who knows? Who knows what happens here? Hopefully it does pass, and it passes with sanity. And that's like all we can hope for. But that's it.
Yeah, if you live in Europe, then sign this. If you don't. You're not helping. Don't go on a VPN and do that, because they're going to detect the fake signatures. They're going to delete those fake signatures. And if at the end of the day they don't have 1 million verified European signatures, well, then it fails. And right now they're sitting at 1.2 million. So my guess is quite a few of those are probably people who had good intentions and wanted to help out, but didn't quite understand that there's going to be a verification process at the end of this. And so a lot of those are going to get thrown away. And hopefully there's still 1 million left when it's left over. So if you're listening to this and you want to help out, the website that you go to is stopkillinggames.com, and sign the EU petition. And hopefully we'll get some results, and we can stop having games just vanish. But that's not going to stop Xbox from vanishing entire studios. So let's move on to our second topic. This is a very dire episode today. I'm sorry. I promise I got something fun for us to talk about later. Xbox just closed a whole bunch of studios. They fired 9,000. Well, Microsoft fired 9,000 people. A lot of those are Xbox employees. And essentially, that's Raven Software, which made they made Call of Duty. They've been affected by the cuts. let's see, Turn 10 Studios. Essentially, they cut 50% of the staff at Turn 10 Studios. That's the people who make the Forza games. And I guess Forza Horizon is going to continue, but the Forza games are going to just vanish. Which is
motorsport ones,
yeah, the ones that are more simmy and less like just open world racing stuff. Rare has been affected. They had a game called Everwild, which I think was in development for 11 years, and that's now been canceled. There was a new MMO that was called Codename Blackbird that was being made by ZeniMax, which is the same ones that made Elder Scrolls Online, which I played a shit ton of Elder Scrolls Online. That game was really good. And look, I was interested to see what ZeniMax was going to do with this Project Blackbird, although we don't really know anything about it.
Thousands and thousands of lives. And it's like all of these people have to get back. You can't possibly have any worthwhile creativity, which is like the whole part of like the Halo studios going to Unreal when their Halo engine is the reason people play Halo. And it's just going to Unreal so they can hire contractors that know Unreal. And it's awful. Everything is bad and terrible, and I hate it, and I don't like it, and I really wish, Russ and I, we went to like a bar to like meet up with them, and Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond were there, but we missed them. And I was going to be like, you guys got to do some like cool stuff. You have your capital, but you need cool capital. And I've talked about this before, and I was going to be like, you guys should make like a new Space Quest and a new King's Quest. And that would never happen. It wouldn't happen. They would maybe make it and then bulldoze over my dream. That's much like, oh, you raised my hopes and dashed them quite expertly, sir. Yeah. Like, God.
Were you going to say something, Russ?
No, I'm still kind of, it's like the moment I start thinking, oh man, Xbox is really turning around here. They're like, wait a second, people are liking us too much. We got to do something about that. On the heels of and the outset of 4th of July weekend, you know what I mean? I'm not saying all these people are US based, but still, that's holiday weekend, and they're going to do that.
Yeah, that's all we need, right? Is like Phil Spencer like shooting off some fireworks, right? Like, woo, we're doing awesome.
That's his memo. That was his fireworks. He was setting off fireworks while the people who were like watching the show, and literally the fireworks exploded, and they said, "You're fired." That's literally what happened. It's like a drone show, and it's just ridiculous. And the whole reason that it's happening is because we are not their customers. Their customers are the stock market. And they seem to think that the only way to survive is to have the line go up. The line cannot possibly go up always. You cannot always earn more money than you did last year. So what do? They have two choices. Either we earn more money than we did last year, or if we don't, then we cut costs so that the line keeps going up. The only way that they can cut the costs is by firing people. And then they're going to take the money that they're saving by firing these people, and they're turning around and spending $80 billion, I think, in AI. And then one shitheel at Microsoft decided that he was going to, I forget who it was, but he was like, why don't you turn to AI to deal with how you feel about being fired? Which I don't think that's really what he said. It was more like you can use AI to help you write your resume or something. But
that's
what a tone deaf statement.
Yeah. Like, what are you doing? Goodness gracious. Oh man, in my gut, I just keep on like circling back on this because, this is irredeemable in a lot of ways, and for a lot of people, they already hated Xbox, and it's like, okay, well, things are happening, and maybe, I could understand it. It like Redfall, right? Redfall came and went, and it came to like it wasn't well received, and that game should have been canceled before it was ever released and never really went anywhere. And then Arcane faced the brunt of that. And then you have all these other things that were happening that got canceled. And maybe Everwild was just going nowhere. And it wasn't good and it needed to get canceled, right? Like, we didn't want another Redfall, so just get rid of it. Okay, fine. But at some point, there is some impetus for some manager that is saying, Arcane Studios, I want you to make a co-op gas game called with vampires. And they're like, what? Like, yeah, get busy. And it's like, all right, we don't really do that, but I guess we'll do it. And the manager who said that still sitting pretty. I don't hear anything about him getting fired. And I want him to get fired. I want everyone that made the decisions that were like, we need to go gas because gas is where money is. Oh, we have too much. No one has the time to play these games anymore. Well, so sorry for everyone that I made do that. All of you have to pay the price now. And that just seems crazy to me. That just, like, how do you not get rid of the management that made that happen is what bothers me more than anything. And it's just like all of that type of stuff is just what really pisses me off. And maybe that Microsoft really has like some advanced stuff that they have access to, and they see how far AI can help accelerate their studios. And they're like, with all this stuff that we have, we don't really need all these people. And like, oh, all right, okay, that sucks. I don't think that's good for a lot of the morale of anyone that works for an Xbox studio at all. When how many people that work for Xbox now are like, okay, my job's secure after these 15,000 people have been.
They're all making resumes right now.
Yeah.
Just in case.
Yeah. Oh, that guy said that I should be using AI to help me make my resume.
Right.
I should probably do that.
Hey, Copilot.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the type of stuff that like, how do you, they're beyond. And I think the worst part about it, and I'll end my sentence here because I'll rant on forever, is they are going to make more money from this. They are going to make more profit from this. They're going to be a $4 trillion company, and everything will go forward. In a month or two, when Russ is reviewing the Xbox ROG Ally, we're going to be like, man, this thing's kind of cool, but like, I don't feel great about it. And, I don't know how to balance that myself. And it was like same shit for like Asus, right? When Asus had all their warranty issues, it was like, I can commiserate, and I totally think that that's something Asus has to fix. But what they did with the Ally X was fantastic, and I want to cheer on the engineering group. The business side of Asus, you guys got stuff to do, but the engineering side of Asus, you guys did a great job. And it's like, when you were doing this, you have to talk about the people that did a great job and be enthusiastic for them, because you don't want to bring the whole thing down. But still, it sucks. The whole thing sucks.
Russ, do you feel it's easier for you to separate the device from the business practices of the company that's putting it out?
I can. I've always been pretty good about that, of being able to look at the hardware and just kind of recognize it for what it is, and then separate myself from the company. I mean, otherwise I'd have a hard time, recommending any like Chinese-based product like GPD or Ioneo, where you got to send the thing back if something goes wrong and whatnot. So you kind of have to take some of that into account, right? Where you're like, okay, well, the service and whatnot are a challenge, but then also the hardware itself is pretty great, and so those are the kind of things you have to look through. But I will say that, like, in my previous time in the military and whatnot, there were several times where we had to make cuts, where it was just like we were given a number. It's like, all right, cut this many billets, cut this kind of personnel. And it's not like it would fire anybody. You don't fire people in the military. You just, like, instead of having 100 people to do the job, the people who rotate out aren't going to come back in to get replaced. And so you're going to go down to 80 billets instead of 100, right? And that always sucked, because it was somebody giving you a number, and then you have to make that mission work, even though you're just giving an arbitrary number at that point. If they said to you, hey, how can you cut your people and make a more agile workforce, I think I would have a much easier time doing that, because I'd be able to actually look at things and make a decision that made sense, Mm-hmm. But what really usually comes down is the number, right? You can see here that in the article, it says 4% of its global workforce, which is where they get that 9,000 personnel number from. That sounds to me like someone was handed down a number. I was like, all right, make some cuts, either budget-wise or billet-wise, that kind of thing. And so, yeah, it's really tough, and I can see what they're going with it. They want to make something, more agile, and maybe remove some managerial positions. Like, all of those are not bad things necessarily, but it really comes down to how they rolled it out. And they're like, okay, this number, you must obtain this number, as opposed to, in a hypothetical, what would you do with your studio if you could make it better? I would rather have the latter than the former, and I feel like the former is what happened.
Like, you think it's probably been handed down from Satya Nadella to Phil Spencer. Like, he just said, Phil, you got to let a bunch of people go, because we got to streamline some stuff.
Yeah, I'm generally, I would expect that's probably, obviously we don't know what's going on, but that's the guess that I would have, is that something came down, it's like, okay, and then trickle down effect, all right, you need to cut this much. Oh, hey, they said we need to cut this much. And it just kind of keeps going down until they make their cuts. And none of that to me is organic or helpful in a way that would be if you could do bottom up instead.
Yeah, it's really strange to me that we keep seeing it. I mean, look, first off, Microsoft is not the only ones that are laying people off. It's happening all over the industry. It's ridiculous. But it's crazy to me because I feel like I think anybody who tuned into this episode is going to hear what we had to say and they're going to be like, you guys are Microsoft haters. And that could not be further from the truth. I definitely have criticisms of Microsoft, but when a company does something that's good, I praise them. And when a company that does something that's bad, I tell them, tell them what's up. And like we just had, I think it was 3 full episodes where we were talking about, because Microsoft had a lot of really big announcements that they made. And we were all pretty bullish on what Microsoft was announcing. And then and then it comes to today and we're saying, they're being a bunch of jackasses. So like, we're not Microsoft haters. We're not Sony haters. We're not Nintendo haters. We're not Steam haters. We're not fanboys either. We're always somebody who just says, this is what's happened and this is what we think of it. So we always try and be pretty balanced about that. The idea that like these studios could have been saved if Microsoft could have said, hey, what do you need in order to survive? I think that would have been very interesting. But some of these, like, they clearly didn't go that way because some of these people found out that they were blindsided by the fact that they were fired essentially. And Cary, you brought up Arcane Studios a little bit ago. Their founder, who's no longer there, they work someplace else now. I can't remember where. Right. Colin Stano, I think is their name. This is what they had to say when they saw these firings. They said, I think Game Pass is an unsustainable model. This is something we've been saying on this show for a long time. That has increasingly been damaging the industry for a decade, subsidized by Microsoft's infinite money. But at some point, reality has to hit. And I don't think Game Pass can coexist with other models. They'll either kill everyone else or give up. Do you think that this is, I'm not going to say related to, do you think that Game Pass is responsible for what they're doing here, Cary?
No, not at all. 0.
Okay. But you do think that it's bad for the industry?
Nope.
No. Okay. Talk about that. Say more.
Yeah. So, I mean, one way or the other, I don't like if Game Pass didn't exist, fine. It doesn't exist. If you don't want Game Pass, okay, that's fine as well. Like if you read them further, like the guy from Larian Studios was also talking to him in that tweet thread. And he was like, if it was just the back catalog, that would be fine. And if it was just the back catalog, I wouldn't subscribe to it, just like I don't subscribe to PSN. So it would be a service that offers no value to me, really. And I would just go back to not buying games day one and waiting for a sale later on, like I have already been doing prior to Game Pass. None of my habits would have changed one way or the other. The only difference now with Game Pass is that I do play games day one because it's inside the subscription. And that has been a thing that I actually like and enjoy. And if Game Pass didn't exist, I probably wouldn't be playing much of anything that Xbox was releasing at all. So that number one for me solely, no, I am a big fan of Game Pass. Number two, I don't think that it's unsustainable because, for instance, that's like saying YouTube is unsustainable because they are ingesting hundreds of days worth of video per day that people are uploading to YouTube. And that is unsustainable. And you have to recognize that Google as a whole company, when they are ingesting all this data, they have dials. They have lots of dials. They have lots of proxy footage that they have made of your one video. And when they push out your video and they're like, okay, no more views for you, they delete all of those proxy videos and they only have the prime one there. And they're just managing dials. When they have alerts that say, oh, we only have a few petabytes of data left, they just move some dials and stuff gets deleted out of one data center. They're just shuffling things around at any given time. So they have the ability, just because of how much scale they have, to dial that in. And you can't say something is unsustainable when there's at least 35 million subscribers paying at least $15 a month. and you have that dial to know how much you can pay. So it's like, okay, how much are we paying? If they want to pay more, they can, but they don't have to. So it's not like, oh, whoa, oh my goodness, we owe $50 billion out of nowhere. How could that have happened? They know exactly what they have to owe because they know exactly what's coming in. So saying it's unsustainable is ridiculous because you just tune it to what the input is. I don't buy that. I don't buy it at all. If now saying that Game Pass affects sales, I think that's valid. That's fine, but my habits wouldn't have changed because I was already not buying day one games as it was. So I was already waiting for discounts, and lots of that stuff has slowed down. And now that games are $80, even more so am I not buying games day one. So I don't know. I mean, figure something out. Maybe don't make AAA games, make AA games, make games that you can make in 3 years instead of 8 or 10. Perhaps do that. I don't know, but all I know is that Game Pass isn't this boogeyman that's actually the death of everything. And I could see it like being negative in a lot of ways, but to just dismiss everything positive about it, especially from a consumer's point of view, is wild.
Yeah, because that's the thing, is the reason Game Pass, it is incredibly popular, and the reason it's incredibly popular is because it is a stupidly good value for us right now. But you and Rich constantly go back and forth in our little private chats. You guys are always going back and forth talking about, well, okay, but eventually they're going to raise the price, like that, like all of these subscription services do.
100%.
And it's eventually going to be okay. That's what I think they're saying about it's unsustainable, because eventually it's going to be either, if they want to keep running it, then they have to raise the price.
Yes, they have to raise the price. That is
right. And then they're going to price themselves out of the market. Oh, and then suddenly it just dies, and it's like, well, what the hell did we do all this for?
Oh, so you're saying, all right, I got you saying. So you're saying it's going to go to like, well, then that's it. Then that would have to be true for like Netflix and all the other stuff as well. And then all the theaters will have been bulldozed to the ground, and then we'll have absolutely nothing.
Right.
Perhaps,
which is what I think he's saying.
I mean, there's like two ways that you can look at this, right? Because like, as we had talked in this very episode, you can't have infinite growth. You can't just every year have growth every year, year over year, because at the same time, we're having lots of people that are having tremendous difficulty just getting by in life. So any type of money that they have for luxury and entertainment is dwindling and going down. Outside of that, there's lots of populations that have forecasts for them to have massively less population, like South Korea and Japan. The US is in there, Germany. All of these people, they're having less people. They're making less people as time goes on. There's more old people than there's less young people. And you're having this topsy-turvy thing where eventually there's going to be less people on Earth than there was today. So you can't have growth in that environment because it'll be impossible. There's less people. So eventually, yes, that has to go away one way or the other. All of the price increases have to follow inflation. And by inflation, I mean all of it, not just like what, the US stock thing says, but it's every bit of inflation that happens. When we pump more money into our dollar, when they start printing more money, inflation. Like all of this is just inflation. So anytime that happens, there is a thing that course corrects. I mean, you could say, if you went back 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and you were like, man, I got a double cheeseburger meal at McDonald's for $3. If they made this $10, that would be unsustainable for them. And that's where they are today. So like, at what point does McDonald's become unsustainable? Because the value of our dollar is going down and down as time goes on.
Yeah.
We're spending more than we make. Our debt is out of control. The interest on our debt is out of control. All of this is spiraling. And like, I don't think that this is related just to the game. Like, this is a hard problem. So Game Pass in itself, no, there's bigger problems that are external to that Game Pass has to respond to, but it's not any more unsustainable than life is as it's going forward.
I think it's just an easy target because looking at me as a Game Pass member, I have played so many games on Game Pass this year that I would not have bought, Expedition 33, the upgraded Elder Scrolls. I played Doom of the Dark Ages, Avowed. Like, these are games that I would not have bought day one, but I just played them because they were part of my service. And that's money. I probably would have eventually bought those games, right? And that's money that didn't go directly to the studio, even though only a portion of it would have. So the balance and the equilibrium there has to be that the company, that Microsoft is providing that studio and that company some sort of compensation for those lost sales, right? There's some sort of balance happening. And the fact that we have so many studios who are still a part of Game Pass, and, the people who express that they think Game Pass is a good thing for their game and whatnot. So it's working right now. My worry is that it's a good deal now, but it can't always be a good deal, right? It's going to get more expensive or whatever's going to happen. And so that's just the way things are. And yeah, so that's where I see it as a sustainability model, as I see it as being like potentially, not sustainable, because at some point it's not going to be as good of a deal as it is now. And so in that point, there'll be a point where I don't want to pay for it anymore because it's not worth it. And to me, that is kind of going towards being unsustainable.
Yeah, and I've spoken to developers, and Cary and I had dinner with one where, like, I've spoken to some developers that are like, I hate Game Pass because nobody will buy my game. Developers have already said, if you are not going to be on Game Pass, there is 0 point in porting to Xbox because they will just not buy it over there. But then, like, Cary and I sat down with a developer at PAX back in May. Was it May or March? May. Yeah, it was May because it was nice out. Back in May, and they were like, "Well, yeah, we'll make some money from the Game Pass being on day one, but most of our money is going to come from the DLC." And that's how developers can use something like Game Pass to keep having an income. But I think that pointing the blame at Game Pass is easy, but I think what the real blame is that Microsoft is closing all of these studios to save money so that they can invest in AI, because when the internet, when search was taking off and Google cornered the market on search, now they pretty much own the internet. Now AI is taking off and everybody's trying to be the Google of AI. And that's very, very expensive. And so they are saying, well, I don't care about this because AI is going to make us way more money. So fire 9,000 people so that we can do this kind of thing. But I don't know. It's annoying and I'm sick of it. And there was a while where we were reporting on this stuff. Every single week we would have layoffs that we would talk about. Right. And then after a while I was like, I don't want to talk about it anymore.
Right.
Because it's like, what else new are we going to say? But this was so huge. Like, this has got to be like the biggest one so far, right? 9,000?
No, I think they had a 9,000 one as well. Or maybe it's like 6,000. Still a lot.
I think that it is still a lot. It's too friggin' many.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I don't know. It's the whole private equity crap that they got going, and I can understand, like, they're doing the Activision. I understand that if they bought Activision, but they didn't properly merge, and why would you have someone that does like administration and marketing in Activision when you already have that person doing that in Xbox? If there's like a redundant role, okay. All right, no problem. You can make that argument, and I'd be like, oh man, that sucks. I get it though. But when you're like closing wholesale studios, and some, the one that was like the one that was like what's the name of it, with Hi-Fi Rush? They come out, they're like
Tango GameWorks.
Yeah, Tango Gameworks was like, surprise! Here's this game, and everyone's like, oh, it's awesome. They're like, we're glad you like it. We're getting rid of them. I was like,
never again.
Yeah, I was like, what? And
they bought all these. They bought all this IP.
Yeah.
And that's what I think they were really buying is IP.
Sure.
And then they just said, screw the people. And now that what they're going to want to do is they're going to want to have AI make these games, which is going to be bad. There
was some vision that is still somewhere there, even today, after all these layoffs. And that is with like Compulsion Games, In Exile, Double Fine. Mm-hmm. There are the AA games that help pad Game Pass. They are not long development cycles. They're 4 year, and I'm a huge fan of AA games. I love the idea of AA games. And Double Fine has that lighthouse game, that really quirky lighthouse game where you are a lighthouse.
Yeah, it's like walking around and looks creepy. Yeah.
So Double Fine didn't get affected as far as I know, and they're still making their really weirdo game. And I'm glad that that is the case. So, okay, if they, Compulsion Games and Exile, all these guys are still there. They're still banging along. If this is just, if all this was actual fat, and we're like, all of this was mismanaged. We should have done a better job. We let them run loose. Everwild was going for 11 years. We looked at it and we can't believe we wasted all this time and money. We had to let them go. If that's on us, we're firing our management team as well. Like, it's like, okay, well, all right, do something, but don't just be like, oh, they're gone. So long. This is done. Chop, chop. Consult AI for therapy. And it's like, all right, geez, goodness gracious.
Especially because they have all these studios and they have all these IPs, and all they have to do is exactly what Cary said. All right, guess what? I need you guys to make a new King's Quest game.
Yeah.
And you guys make this and put it all on Game Pass.
Exactly. Like at some point, I was literally going to tell Phil Spencer, I was like, you guys just need to do more cool games. Have a game that takes 1 year to make it 2 hours long. Just put it on Game Pass. King's Quest and Space Quest games are not going to be played by anyone but super niche hardcore people that care about that. But it's going to be cool little things that those people love, and those people are going to sing your praises. And you just need to do that. You need your Vib Ribbon. You need your King's Quest. You need all of your little nice, cool little games, your Double Fine games and other stuff. You just need to keep doing that. You need to do the cool creative stuff. And if all you're doing is just destroying all the cool creative stuff and just like full on Joe versus the volcano, put your suit on, march into, work, just have the fluorescent lights that are just drilling into your soul.
He's painting a picture here.
For a brief moment, I worked at a AT&T headquarters, and it didn't smell bad at all. It was like a weird cafeteria smell. Like, you would get in there and it was just the headquarters smell. And every time I would walk in there, I got a stomach ache. And I was like, oh, fudge, I'm here. I don't want to be here. And it was just AT&T and people that got fired from IBM, and AT&T rehired those at a lower salary. And I was taking IBM laptops and making them AT&T laptops. And that's all I was doing. Just like getting these things. I was like, why am I doing all these? And the person's like, oh, we got fired from IBM and AT&T hired us. And I was like, why are you okay with that? Like, it's just like, yeah, we just got slapped in the face and now we're over here now. And it's like, well, that sucks. And this place sucks. I don't want to be here. And that's how I feel. Is like, it's all just, you can't just be the bottom line all the time. It can't just be, because if it is, what do you got? I don't know, man.
Russ,
I can
take it. Go,
so I can
do it.
I can hear Phil Spencer's reply to all this, where you're like, make cool games and all that stuff. He's going to be like, well, we already have an expansive portfolio and it's the strongest it's ever been. Our catalog is, like he's going to have all that gobbledygook to be able to say that is just like nonsense, right? And without having to hear you, he's listening, if that makes any sense. And I just don't really, I think it's better living as a fantasy in your mind that we didn't meet those guys than the reality of what would have happened if we had actually talked to him.
Yeah, it would. I mean, best case scenario is they would have just smiled and nodded and just like, yeah, sure, absolutely. We totally agree with you. Like next month, we're firing 9,000.
Right.
And they're blaming it on Cary. Russ, pull us out of this. Find a story that's more fun.
So I don't think this is a bad thing, but so Neil Druckman is stepping away from Last of Us, the TV show, to focus on future stuff, which is what is the name of that show or that game he's working on?
Naughty Dog.
No, it's Intergalactic.
Intergalactic.
Intergalactic, yeah.
That's the one where there's like a Porsche spaceship and she's wearing Chucks or Adidas,
it's like a bounty hunter or something. Yeah. So I don't know. Like, I think that's probably a good move at this point. Last of Us has probably got a feel for what's going on. And I honestly think that pulling him out of it is going to potentially give more creative freedom to the rest of the team. You know what I mean? As opposed to being like, well, no, at this point in the story, this happened in the game, right? But the game is so different than the show in terms of just your experience as you're playing it. I mean, obviously it's a self-guided kind of thing. Obviously there's there's elements to it that are absolutely, focused narrative, but for the most part, you kind of make your own story as you're playing it. And so I think the idea of allowing filmmakers and TV show personnel to kind of take that and then honor it, but still kind of move forward, I think that's actually a good thing. And it allows Neil Druckman to kind of focus on Intergalactic, which I like that preview. I like the idea of another story-driven, like first single player experience, and so I see this as being a good thing, because I think he's kind of put his feet into it and then just kind of stepped away. Now, whether or not it's going to be like, Steven Spielberg making Jurassic Park and then kind of letting everyone else make the rest of them other than the third one, where that went, I mean, that's a bad thing, you know what I mean? But there are, there's still some good moments there. It's kind of like George Lucas stepping away from Star Wars, I don't mind it.
And so he says, co-creating the show has been a career highlight. It's been an honor to work alongside Craig Matson, I don't know how to say his name, to executive produce, direct, and write the last 2 seasons. I'm deeply thankful for the thoughtful approach and dedication of the talented cast and crew to adapting The Last of Us Part 1 and the continued adaptation of Last of Us Part 2. And I agree with you. I think it's good that he's stepping away. He took 2 seasons to make sure that they built their roadmap. And now somebody like Craig Matson, who I believe did Chernobyl, they were the showrunner for Chernobyl, they can probably handle it from here. And it's good that Neil Druckman would go back to doing his actual job, which is running Naughty Dog as, I think, CEO, and he's also the head of creative, and he's directing this game. That's right. A lot of stuff. And if you want that game to be good, you don't want him to be distracted making a TV show. So I think that that's a great thing that he's moving on. And I have no misgivings about him leaving the show. I think the show's doing really, really well. I like it a lot. I liked both seasons. Did you guys watch both seasons?
Yeah.
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 It's
funny because my wife would always be like, oh, what's going to happen here in this action sequence? I'm like, there's like 500 action sequences in the game, and I can't remember what happens in all of them, right? And I don't know which one this is supposed to be. That was always a funny thing, is like me trying to parse the video game aspect and then the actual narrative of it, because there's so much that happens in a video game, but they've got to kind of pick and choose the scenes in the show. So yeah, I enjoyed the second season.
My wife really disliked season 2 a whole bunch. She didn't like what happened to Joel.
We won't say any spoilers. We won't say what happens. Go ahead.
She just like, even how it ended is like literally like the first half of Last of Us Part 2, the video game. And then she's like, oh, and I'm like, well, second season's like, from the other perspective. And she's like, I don't care. I was like, yeah, I know. I didn't care either. It was like another 20 hours. So yeah, it's, I mean, yeah, I'm in agreement with Russ is that I think Neil Druckman should do Intergalactic. Like, I want him 100% to be like focused on Intergalactic rather than season 3, when you could just be like, here, just play this part and I'll see you guys later. Just follow that. The blueprint's right there. So yeah, I'm also fine with that. I don't think that they're going to steer it too far unless they do steer it wildly different, in which case I think I might actually like season 3 more, because if it's like wildly different, it's like, oh, okay, I don't know what's going to happen now. Let me follow along.
Yeah. Well, also, like, I know that people love when like their show gets renewed and then they get to watch another season, but sometimes shows overstay their welcome. And maybe they've got the blueprints for finishing this story and then stopping. And, Craig Matson and his team of filmmakers go on to do something else.
Yeah.
And that I think would be like, you look at British TV compared to American TV. American TV, we get like 22 episodes, 17 seasons. It's still going. You look at British TV, they do 6 episodes and then they never talk about it again sometimes. Yeah. And sometimes I think that's better.
Special.
Right.
Yeah, they tell the story and then they're like, okay, we told the friggin' story. We don't need to We don't need to pad everything out with tons and tons of filler episodes.
There's what, like the very formulaic shows that, you know, always have, like once they started branching outside of the family values type of TV shows from like the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and they started going into other types of stuff, and they started doing more formulaic stuff like Bones or
like procedurals,
X-Files,
Monster of the Week things. Yeah,
exactly. Monster of the Week, the disease of the week, this of the week. I like those to like a limited amount, and I feel like one show that I absolutely loved was Supernatural on CW. I loved that show, and I love the direction that they took it, because there's like, oh, vampires and werewolves are real. They just hide so well, and these are these bounty hunters. These are the guys that hunt. These are the monster hunters, and they had a monster of the week. And I like the direction that they went, and you could feel literally the moment when I always call it like because there's like Eric Kripke. You can feel the moment Eric Kripke is just like, flavor's gone, I'm bored, I don't want to do this anymore, but he's still being paid to do it. So he just starts going way off script, and things just get really campy and wild, and you're just like, whoa, that was a wild swing. Like you just get like, you know, whiplash from like how serious the thing went into like cartoonishly circus. And it's like, what am I even watching anymore? And it's like when season 6 of Supernatural happened, I was like, okay, this show is enough for me. I'm not going to watch it. And I think it went on for a bunch more seasons. And I was like, this is just not as good as what it was. And I feel like this guy is self-sabotaging, but no one's picking up on it. And you know what I mean? I feel like
that's funny.
You know what I mean? It's like, I feel like to what you're referencing, Bill, is like, even the creators are just like, please, no more. How can we stop this? Oh, I know. I'm going to make it terrible. And then they do it, and they're like, they're still watching it. Why?
I think that people fall in love with characters.
Sure.
And they're just like, they're attached to those characters, and they don't want to let those strings go. You look at, and I know this is a video game show and we're talking about TV shows. I'm sorry, guys. But like Stranger Things is coming back.
Oh, yeah.
I'm freaking hyped for that.
Same.
My wife and I have been rewatching the series because it's been quite a while. And all of the actors are like, yeah, I am fine. I'm done with it. And it's not like they freaking hate Stranger Things, because it's the thing that put them on the map. I'm sure that they appreciate their time with it. But when you've been playing the same character for, for these kids, it's like their whole friggin' lives.
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
It's like
you're ready to move the frick on. You know, you're like, okay, I'm done. What were you going to say, Russ? I heard you say something.
I was gonna say, it's like the Harry Potter kids, you know, same thing. They were done, you know, by the time that finished up, 7 movies or whatever. But, you know, I do have to just take a moment and just recognize that it is awesome that we have these shows nowadays that are actually a full story. You know, like I think Lost was a big component of that, where it was, you know, instead of having that creature of the week kind of thing, it like full on was like, this is just a really long movie, you know. But there's a lot of spinning wheels with television in that it's like, will it or will it not be canceled? And so there's a lot of like narrative issues that the writers have to deal with. I think Battlestar Galactica is probably one of the best. Like season 2 and 3 are just chaos in that show, because they just didn't know if they were coming back or not, you know, and like how long the season was even going to be. And you can feel it in the narrative. But I do love the fact that we are getting these shows like this. Something like Last of Us being able to be serialized like this is super cool. We used to only have, you know, miniseries sometimes, like Roots or something. That was a big event where it was like a movie that was really long, you know. V is another one I'm thinking of, like from the 80s,
remember
right?
V.
Yeah. And so it's like, I love that this is just kind of part of how things are. And it's one of the nice things about, you know, streaming services, honestly, is they'll drop a whole, like, you know, a whole season of Squid Game or whatever, which is really a 6-hour movie at that point. Right. And I appreciate that. I love that.
Oh, yeah. Stuff, so. Well, what was, there's another, Chernobyl. Chernobyl was amazing.
Right.
Same showrunner as Last of Us.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, like, I mean, I want those guys doing more stuff. Those guys
Yeah.
those guys do fantastic work. So yeah, I'm totally on board. I think there's some things like Mindhunters for Netflix had 2 seasons and then it like evaporated, and now there's going to be like 3 movies finally happening or something, and it's like, oh, thank goodness. Like you didn't even get to the point. The only problem I have with Netflix is sometimes they'll start something and then there's like, okay, no one's watching it based on our figures. It's like, wait, you didn't even get to the point that you were trying to get to.
Yeah.
Like, please just get to that. For me, I think the one thing that I love about for Fallout and The Last of Us is they treat video game on a TV series with respect. And
Yes.
that is the only thing that I could care. Just treat it with respect, and I'm fine with it. Like, just honor the source material, do it as best you can, and I'm on board. And I watched season 2 of Last of Us with my wife, and even if she didn't like it, that's whatever. But that has more to do with like what happens. And
Right.
so that's fine. But yeah, it's I just want more. I love the idea of going into video games as TV series and stuff. And I'm also on board with you, Bill, that it should just be short, very concise, unless you have some, or like in Fallout's case, it's a completely different thing that didn't happen in the video game, but everything that happens in the TV series is canon with the rest of the Fallout universe.
That part I don't. You and I always argue about this. I could not care less if they follow what happens in a game, because the number of people, of everybody who is watching this thing, whatever it happens to be, the people who have played the game are a tiny, infinitesimal, minuscule number of people compared to everybody else. And so their job first is to tell a good story. And if they can link that back to the original IP and the original story in the game, then that's a bonus. But if not, I don't care. I just want to see something that is compelling, that is dramatic or funny, that is exciting to watch, or is intense, like The Last of Us season 2. That was intense. Like every single episode, there was an intensity to what was happening on the screen, and I just freaking loved it.
I would offer, for instance, I hate the Halo TV series. And the reason I hate the Halo TV series is because they changed the entire Covenant's point of view from the get-go. So it would be as like you were watching The Last of Us, and what happened in season 2, they did it or didn't for entirely different reasons. And you're like, well, how does that, having played that, you'd be like, well, why'd you do that? I mean, you could say there has to be a reason. You can't be so, if it's a good reason, fine. But you can't be so far out of bounds where the character no longer is acting how they were in any other way. Because now you have mutually exclusive things going on.
Yeah, you got a conflict.
Yeah, so how do you reconcile that? And like, if you can say, okay, for the people that aren't in Halo whatever, they're just seeing that, and that is their concept of what's happening. But for the minuscule amount of people that are like watching from that dude like Halo, they're just going to be like, what the hell is happening here? This makes no sense. And all of it is just going to, for me, I feel like Halo flopped because no one cared about the story, and the people that did care were like, what the hell am I watching?
Well, okay, so I think, and I promise we'll get back to video games soon, guys.
Wait, this is video games.
I know. I think what happened with Halo, and as somebody who did not watch it, okay, it is my understanding that it was bad. Like, that's why it didn't do well. It wasn't because they changed things. It was a bad show. And because it was a bad show, it didn't resonate with anyone, video game players and not video game players.
Sure.
Yes, they changed things, and you may not like that they changed things, but I guess what I'm trying to say is them changing things is not the reason it's bad. It's bad because it's bad, and they also changed things.
So in Halo, the things that they did change were not in the original game, and I submit they weren't in the original game because they weren't good storytelling to begin with. Like,
right, that's the problem. It was bad storytelling.
So yeah, you had John having a love interest that never happened, the love interest being a part of the Covenant that would never have happened to begin with, and it's just like really weird stuff. just really weird stuff. And yeah, it fell flat. But if you don't care about canon, fine. I think I enjoyed the Fallout TV series, but I enjoyed it more because now I remember that game. And for me, Walter Goggins as the ghoul, like, I want to see him in the game somewhere. I would love to, oh shit, there he is. That would make me happy.
If you could go and buy cherry tomatoes from him.
But like, yeah, I mean, I would want him to be like more of a badass, like, not caring ghoul type of guy. But I would love that his character transfers to the game somewhere, and then there's that shared universe that all of it, because it's canon and it's not separate, that they can allow that to happen. And that's where I think a lot of awesome things can happen.
I agree with that. I think that would be fun. And goddamn, Fallout was so good.
Like if they had Walter Goggins voice act in like Fallout 5 or whatever, that'd be dope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although, just so you know, it's Walton. What were you saying, Russ?
I was just going to say, like, I don't actually remember anything that happens in the story of any of the Fallout games I played. I just remember what I did in those games, right?
Yeah.
And so coming into the Fallout show, I was just like, oh, it feels like Fallout, and I don't really care whether or not it's true to anything that happened in the games because I don't even remember. And so I really enjoyed that. I think it was a really smart kind of move. One thing, you just talking about voice actors, Bill and I were at Too Many Games last week, and I met a bunch of voice actors. It was really cool. Like, I didn't do that the previous year, but because we had like these VIP stickers on our badges because we were there for, our event or whatever. So we got like head of line privileges when it came to meeting those people. So I went up and I met the voice actor for like Princess Peach and Toad, which was hilarious. And just hearing this lady like bust out in the Toad voice was so funny. Like I couldn't help myself from laughing every time. But I did want to mention that they really felt like true like artists, like meeting some of these people, they're talking about their time in the studio and like how they would book their times and like, pushing through some of these voice lines and like getting it right and trying to honor the characters and stuff. It's really awesome. Like we talked to John DiMaggio, who did Marcus Phoenix's voice, and we were kind of asking like, like you don't naturally sound like Marcus. So like, was it rough on your voice, And he was like, yeah, I had to always book Marcus Phoenix like on Fridays because my voice would be shot after that, And so he's like taking a toll on his body to make this character right, and I think that's pretty cool, especially across, however 5 games or whatever he did it on. And so just really cool. I noticed that because you mentioned one of the show things talks about the SAG-AFTRA like has ended their strike and and talks about AI implementation and stuff like that. And I think that's really cool because they're true artists, and I really want to make sure that those people who are putting their kind of dedication into the craft like that, they are not replaced with AI voices once they get their voice mapped or whatever. I think that's a really important factor.
Yeah, that's one of the things that. Okay, so that's a perfect segue to the next thing. Before we get there, though, real quick, I just wanted to say one thing. Earlier, Russ brought up V. For those of you who have not seen V, just look up the baby being born scene in V, and you are going to be absolutely horrified. That thing scarred me as a kid. That was so terrifying.
Bill just wants to scar
on
more
prime
people.
Time television.
Yeah, do yourselves all a favor and scar yourselves.
It was. It's something to behold. I don't know if you two remember it.
I remember,
but holy cow, it is really messed up.
We're talking about the old V, not the new V, because
not the new one.
Don't watch that
with
one.
Maria, the lady from Firefly, was in that one. Right. I can't remember her name.
That one that has less scarring. Don't do that one. Do the one that's full scar.
Yeah, more scars, please. But yeah, SAG-AFTRA has ended its video game actors strike. So the voice actors that make the games where you are playing and they're talking to you or whatever, they've been on strike for a while. And they recently have come to a tentative agreement. They haven't signed anything yet, I believe. But it gives them a bunch, it gives them more money and that kind of thing. But the big thing that is the most important is exactly what Russ was just hitting on. It says the agreement also requires informed consent across various AI implementations and for the ability, this part I didn't see coming and is awesome, and for the ability for performance to suspend informed consent for digital replicas during a strike. So basically what they're saying is if you want to work with a SAG-AFTRA voice actor for your game, if you're going to use AI at any point, you have to tell them when you hire them. And they can then say, no, we won't do that, which I hope that they all will. And they probably all will, because they don't want AI to replace them. But then if they go on strike again, one of the things that I think a lot of them were worried about is, okay, next time we go on strike, they already have our voices. They can just make more voices of us. And the actors can say, all right, well, we're going on strike, so we're going to suspend our contract. You are not allowed to use our AI to do anything. And I would say that probably, like, maybe the voice actors might want AI for some things. They might say, well, you know what? I did come in there and made 400 different screams today. How about you guys just AI my screams? Because the screams is an exhausting part of the job. And yes, I'm sure that there's acting happening. Like Russ and I did a little bit of acting last weekend, and there was a point where somebody was screaming very loud. It was hilarious. I can't wait till Bob posts this video. But like, he was just like, like screaming and screaming and screaming. And we had to like, okay, let's do another take. He had to start over with the screaming. I bet you that they would be like, yeah, how about we don't have to do that anymore?
That's an interesting. So let me ask you guys this question. So if like I'm 100% on board that something has to get figured out with like AI understanding to what degree they are borrowing from any given discipline or whatever and source. So they're like, oh, I'm doing 25% of this guy, and I'm doing 10% of this, and I'm doing 10% of that. And everything in there is like embedded with like, oh, you know, royalties wise, this is what we borrowed from, and these are the people that need to get paid. I would love for that to be an eventuality of like how that all happens, because everything you can't you can't just consume all of this stuff and just be like, here, we're making a novel. And it's like, this reads like a lot of different people. And it's like, yeah, it's awesome, isn't it? It's like, well, sure. But like, I think that this actually did come out good, but it'd be great if you like kicked back to the people that you stole all of this stuff from. So I think that I'm hoping what AI could do is there may be some scenarios where there are going to be scenarios where you can't possibly script out everything that a character can say in a video game. But if AI could understand context and use that voice to create a whole new sentence that was never said before in that person's voice, in context to what's happening in the video game, I think that would be cool, but I want that voice actor to be paid under that arrangement of, we are going to use AI in this and we're paying you more because
and every time we use it, you get a new check.
Like, that'd be crazy, right? Like, everyone's playing this video game and like this is a giganto royalty. I don't know how that would work out. I feel like there should be something where they do get paid, and it is like, if they are like, okay, we only need you here for, we don't need you to remember like Oblivion or Skyrim, right? They're there for like, I don't know, tens of thousands of lines. And it's like, we don't need you for tens of thousands of lines. We only need you for 3,000 lines. But we're going to pay you as if you did 15,000 lines. And I'm like, okay, like, cool. I think that works out somewhere. And I feel like that is like a happy middle ground somewhere, right? Because like, you know, they could have more than 15,000 lines, but they get paid 5 times more than the work that they did. So I feel like somewhere in the mix of things, that would be good. But at the very least, I think it's the same thing with like Stop Killing Games. It's not like we're saying, give us all your stuff and don't use AI. But if you are going to use AI, at least pay the people that you're taking it from.
Yeah, or give them the option, because I think that there are some voice actors who would still want to deliver every line because they enjoy it, you know, or maybe they think they can add a little something that AI cannot, you know. And so I think having that option, you know, the informed consent, I think would be a good option there.
Yeah.
By the way, we record this podcast on, this is not an ad, although they have sponsored me before. We record this podcast on Riverside, and there's a feature in Riverside where I can literally change the words that Cary or Russ are saying, and it will make their lips move to those other words. I would not do that.
Keep moving,
but
around.
I can.
That's crazy. That is insane.
I know.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
That is absolutely insane. I didn't know that was the case. You're going to have to come on a podcast with me on Riverside.
What do you mean?
Just joking.
I didn't understand.
He wants to be able
guess-
to manipulate you.
Yeah, I
what
wanna-
he's saying.
Oh, okay, got you. Dance, monkey, dance.
No, that's messed up. Jesus Christ, that's messed up.
Right? And I would never use that feature, but it's available. Like I said, they're a sponsor. They asked me to make a video where I was using it to here's where it would be useful. I could auto translate the podcast into another language and then have it change it so that when our lips are moving, it's I don't know how well it would work. I haven't used it because I'm
think
kind
that's
of
cool.
against AI. That is a cool use case.
You're right.
And it's also a way that they could.
Provided that the translation was accurate, right?
Right. That's
Right.
the other thing. I don't know what it's being translated
Did
to.
you just say paper baby monkey? I didn't say that.
Yeah. Although, thinking about this, how AI could be used in video games is they could that could really hurt voice actors that are not English speaking, because most games are made English speaking first, and then they hire other
right.
their JRPGs are usually Japanese first, and then they hire English speaking actors to dub it in. But most games are made English speaking first, and then they're translated to other things, and they hire other voice actors to replace those lines with another language. They could use AI to do that, and then they would have to hire one voice actor. That sounds great because of consistency across the board of, well, when you play it in English, he sounds like this. When you play it in Spanish, he sounds like this.
Well,
it's weird.
It would also, it's also awesome for the point of view. Usually you have frigs.
What's a frigs?
It's or figs. It's French, Italian, German, Spanish.
Oh, right.
When they're doing voice, there's fig, or there's different acronyms for how much you do into translation. But there's basically 5 groups that they translate a language into. The nice thing would be is that if you are in a language that never gets translated to, but you could get that done. That's an interesting thing. Is they never ever put it into, I don't know, Portuguese or whatever, right? It's okay, now you can have it in Portuguese. And does that encroach on anyone when they never did it to begin with?
That's a very good question. It's one of those gray areas where most of the time we talk about stuff, it's very black and white. That's super gray.
Right. Yeah. So you have languages that have never been translated before. All of a sudden AI can fill that role, and it isn't replacing anything because there was nothing there to begin with.
What do you think about that, Russ?
No, I think it'd be great. I think that, AI translations of so my first thing I thought of was Chuukese. You guys probably haven't heard of this language. It's a Micronesian language. And I was a linguist, right? And at one point I was the lead linguist among the linguists in the Navy. And I remember this sailor came up to me and was like, hey, do you have any need for Chuukese? And I was like, what is Chuukese? And he had gone on a mission and had gone to the island of Chuuk, and I think it's maybe 45,000 speakers across the whole planet, right? And I learned a lot about the language. It's kind of really interesting, but they don't have any translation in any video game anywhere. You know what I mean? So that'd be really cool to just have that as an option. My worry is that you earlier were talking about, okay, let's use 25% of this guy, 10% of this guy, and kind of create this voice, That's great because it pays those actors who created those voices in the first place. I can see all that happening great. But it also makes it harder for new voice actors to break out and to kind of get hired in and kind of be that next generation. And so I can see a long-term generational problem being that maybe they're just going to use what they have in their repository as opposed to hiring a new guy. And when does that new blood come in, and all of the creativity and all that stuff that would come from that too. So there's definitely got to be a balance there. And hopefully the studios will be able to recognize it and be like, this sounds AI. This sounds flat.
Well,
we need to bring a real person in or something.
there was that. There's the few YouTube bands. There are few Spotify bands that are supposedly all AI, and they got like 500,000 people listening to them per month, and it's like people are actually listening and liking what this thing is doing, and it's just like, oh boy, this is already in a spot where it's very, very, it's crazy, and I don't know, it is sucky because basically you're starting this divide of have and have nots, and it's everything that was like prior, like before, like the American dream like left in like, when I was born in the 80s, I was like with my little suitcase, I was like, the bus for the next American dream. They're like, oh, I'm sorry, it's gone. Like, well, when's the next bus? It's like, no more American dream. It's all gone. I was like, what? yeah, it's going to be tough for you. And it's only going to get worse every generation forward. And I feel like that's the case, is where like AI is going to just like, you have literally like the guy who won the Nobel Prize for AI stuff from all of his work that he's done. He's like, learn to be a plumber and an electrician, because that's the only job those like, be an elevator repair person, because that's what basically all blue collar jobs, like everyone that has been going to college for the white collar jobs and all the other stuff, all of this valueless now. AI is going to supplant all of that. The only thing that is AI is going to come for is all the things that people thought AI would do first, is all the manual layer jobs, all of the creative jobs that people were like, oh, I can't wait to be that's the only thing we're going to be able to do because AI can't do that. That's what it did first. And it's terrible. This podcast is a bummer.
All right, let's get out of this bummer
podcast.
It has been kind of a bummer today, but let's bring it back. Let's do something fun. I kept seeing on Reddit as I was scrolling through, I kept seeing this grid of video game box art. And the question would be, what's the best game of this year? And basically, they're building out that grid. And I thought, oh, we could have a conversation about the best games that came out in a certain year. So I thought that we would start with 25 years ago, the games of the year 2000. And obviously, there's a lot of games that came out in the year 2000. We can't look at the whole list. There's going to be games that we overlooked. We would love to hear your favorite games from the year 2000 if we don't talk about those games. But I sent these guys a list of games, and I was like, pick a game that you want to talk about. Russ, what game do you want to talk about from the year 2000? Yeah.
So it's funny, and no fault of yours, but like 2000 is like, I didn't play any video games that entire year, because that's the year I like joined the Navy, went to boot camp, went to like my primary like school and stuff. So like I didn't own a TV, I didn't own any of that stuff, But in 2001, as I was finishing up my first language school, I was living in an apartment. I did get my own TV, and I bought a PS1 because I had never really played that before, and so I was playing catch up. And so there are some PS1 releases from 2000 that I remember playing the following year. Tony Hawk 2 is one, but then the one I wanted to talk about is Final Fantasy 9, or I call it Final Fantasy X as a joke. But I loved this game. Like I know a lot of people, love 7 and not so many with 8, but then thought 9 was kind of like a little bit too kiddie and just like kind of, cartoony and stuff. I played all 3 of those games in 2001 when I first got that PS1, and I liked 9 the best over 7 and 8. I definitely thought 7 was really good. 8 I actually never finished because that game would scale up in difficulty as you got stronger, and so I got to a point where I was stuck in a save game where I had a save spot, and I was in this cave and I couldn't get out of it because I couldn't beat the guy and I couldn't get away. And so I never finished 8. I was probably like 90% of the way done through that game. Brutal. But 9 I actually like the best. And 9 I have gone through and played again like 2 or 3 times since. And I still have never gone back and played 7. So it says a lot to me. I just think it was well-rounded, a lot of diversity in the characters, and just kind of had that kind of typical JRPG, like getting bigger and bigger and bigger in scope, and then all of a sudden you got to save the mana from the planet and the all the stuff that always happens in every JRPG. But it was a good fit for me, and I really enjoyed it. And I thought the cutscenes in particular looked awesome on my TV back in the day. I was like, oh my gosh, it's like watching a movie, in the middle of a game. And so, yeah, Final Fantasy 9, really loved it.
So when that game came out, I was a PC gamer, and I really wasn't playing. I had a Nintendo 64 and my PC, and that's where I played most of my games. And I never played Final Fantasy IX. So please remind me, is that the one where they kind of returned to more of a fantasy setting instead of like the steampunk setting?
Yeah, exactly. And it had like Vivi in it. He kind of looks like he's a black mage.
Black mage
like from
with
the
the
old
big
games.
yellow hat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
exactly. Yeah.
Cary, did you play Final Fantasy IX?
No, I haven't played a Final Fantasy game in earnest after Final Fantasy VII, like halfway through the game. And then I was just like, I don't think JRPGs are for me anymore. But I should try out Final Fantasy IX because Russ always... there's a number of people that always told me Final Fantasy IX and also Final Fantasy XI, I think, that were...
That's the MMO.
Oh, Final Fantasy XI is the MMO? Then it might be 9.
Yeah, probably 12.
Or 12. Yeah, there's something where
9
like
and
an
12 are pretty...
X11, probably 12. Anyway, I've had a number of people tell me that I should play a number of different Final Fantasy games, but with emulators now, you can just fast forward past stuff that is just going on a little bit too long. So I think I'm going to lean into those because frankly, I had to do it for Chrono Trigger. Like I replayed Chrono Trigger, the DS one, and I had to fast forward through a lot of it because I was like, I know what happens here. And there's like parts that I can remember, like, oh, this part again. And I'm just like, you know what I mean? Like I want to get to the parts that I remember, you know, like when you get to like Frog's theme and the Mazamune and all the other stuff, I let that stuff cook. Like in Ocarina of Time, I remember when I was a kid, when you get the 3 jewel things and you unlock the Temple of Time, because I have an analog stick, when I opened that door and I saw the Master Sword, I walked with Link. I didn't run. I was just like...
Took your time.
You know what I mean? I was like, I was just like, this is so awesome. And I loved Ocarina of Time. And Ocarina of Time, like going back to it, you can feel like the heart, but I loved Ocarina of Time a bunch. So no, I never played Final Fantasy. Anything after 7, I really have to go back to those, especially leaning on like fast forward moments and with retro achievements. I really, there's also a lot of PS2 games. PS2 is just a fantastic library, like all over the place. It's kind of like PS2 is almost like, I would love it if we can get like AA games to the quality of PS2 games. Like if we could just get a bunch of PS2 games coming at us, I would be a lot happier. For me, I was actually looking for it. I took a step away because I thought I had it. I have my boxes for World of Warcraft, but I can't find my box for Diablo 2. I know it's somewhere. And Diablo 2 was my game of 2000 by far. I loved Diablo 2. Diablo 2 I played after I got sick of EverQuest. Like EverQuest, I was just like, EverQuest is just a brutal game, and I love EverQuest for being as brutal as it was. Because that was a game that was like, oh, you died at level 30? Well, you just lost hours of your life of all the experience that you lost. And it was like, sometimes it was just like, I can't effing play this game anymore. Like I would have to like stop playing it because I'd be so angry. And Diablo 2 BattleNet was such a fan. Have you guys ever played Diablo 2 in like 2000, 2001?
No, because the game kept getting delayed is my memory. Like they kept delaying it and they were like, it's coming. And I was like, I just kind of got sick of waiting for it. And then I got hooked on games that you just mentioned, EverQuest.
Right, yeah, EverQuest was fantastic. I have a big soft spot for EverQuest, and I love how brutal the game is. We've joked about it all the time where, you know, the boat that comes, like if you miss it, you have to wait an hour or like 25 minutes because it literally left and it's going in real time.
Yeah, you're running to the boat and you can see it pull away and you're like, no!
There is a part of me that loves that aspect, even though it's like it is crappy. Like you don't want that in a game where you're just like, I really have to wait for this stupid virtual boat. I still love it. I love EverQuest for that, and I don't really fault it for it. But Diablo 2, which came out around that time, so in EverQuest, I played a Necromancer class, and that class was so overpowered in EverQuest, like outrageously overpowered. I don't know if did you ever play Necro early EQ?
I played everything in EQ. I played that game for friggin' years.
So
funny story. Once I interviewed David Brevik, the creator of Diablo. about EverQuest because that's his favorite game of all time.
Oh, wow.
That's where he met his wife.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah. And he and I had that same reminiscing about, wasn't it great when you lost your corpse and you lost all that experience? And we were, oh, it was so great. And I can imagine people listening to that saying, that sounds freaking awful. There's something about it that was good. But anyway, sorry.
No, yeah. It's like so early EQ, Necros were absolutely broken. You could spawn your pet, your pet class was a skeleton, but you could give it fine daggers, which weren't very expensive. Like people would make fine daggers, and you could just buy it off of people. And the thing that was insanely broken about the game is that when you gave them 2 fine daggers, that they would now be dual wielding and have their same attack, but now the speed of the fine daggers. So they would just like razor through things all the time. Like I was like level, I don't know, 20 something, and I dueled a level 20 warrior, and I was like, just fight my pet. I didn't even do anything. I didn't cast the spell. I didn't do anything. And my pet destroyed him. And I was just like, this is outrageous. And they had so many spells like feign death and all this other stuff so that they can get away from death. They were the most broken class by far. But because of my experience with necromancers at the time, I was like, necromancers are a hard class to balance. I played as a necromancer in Diablo 2 thinking I was like going to be this like unstoppable force, and that wasn't the case at all. But I still really liked playing as the necromancer. I still actually really enjoyed the necromancer. Like, you can actually see.
Well, he's reaching for something, audio listeners.
It's the D4.
Looks like can you hold it forward more, or it won't be in focus, will it?
No.
Oh.
It's the Diablo 4 Necro.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
That looks freaking cool as hell.
Yeah, so it was like clearance at GameStop. No one was buying it, so it was like $9. So I was like, cool. But I'm a big fan of the Necro class, and I played as a Necro in D2 and in BattleNet. BattleNet was so awesome because it would be like this weird quasi multiplayer game. You could play multiplayer in Diablo 2. It wouldn't be like giant MMO like, but you had the MMO portion in chat rooms, and then you could trade and do other stuff inside of the chat rooms to then go into the game. And it was just a really cool way to like be in BattleNet and just like kind of have the MMO experience as insofar as chatting and talking with people, and then to like isolate yourselves once you like met up with someone, right? And then you could like trade weapons and stuff. And I really, really loved everything about Diablo. So Diablo 2, without a doubt, is my favorite game from 2000.
All right. Well, I played Diablo 1 and I loved it. And then when Diablo 3 was coming out, I had missed Diablo 2, so I on the treadmill, I watched all of the cutscenes from Diablo 1 and Diablo 2, so I could get caught up, so I was ready when the next one came out. And I like the Diablo series a lot. My favorite game from the year 2000, I'm going to go with there's a lot of really good games on this list, but I'm going to go with Resident Evil Code Veronica. And here's the reason why. When this game came out, I had my Dreamcast, and I worked as tech support for a local dial-up company back in the day. And I was hired to work the overnight shift. So I'm at work by myself all night. Nobody's calling in because people are asleep at night. It's not like the internet is now where it's easy to use, and you know what I mean? And so like people aren't getting on the phone and looking at the internet all night like they do these days, or at least the people who did knew how to fix their stuff. So I got very few calls during the night, and it was a struggle to stay awake. So I would bring my Dreamcast in and I would play the games that I had on my Dreamcast, because if I remember correctly, the Dreamcast had VGA out, unlike most consoles, so I could hook it up to the computer monitors at work. And I remember one of my roommate's younger brothers, who he was always over at our apartment, he worked at KFC. And what he would do is at the end of the night, they would give him a bunch of food that they were throwing out. And he would drive over to where I worked, and he would bring the KFC. And I'm sitting there and I'm playing. I've got all the lights off in the office because I'm the only one there.
Oh boy!
And I'm playing playing Resident Evil Code Veronica, and I'm like, I pause it because I hear something. I'm like, what is that sound? And we used to go outside our boss's window to smoke back when I was a smoker. And so I went out and I opened my boss's window and I stuck my head out the window and I looked, didn't see anything. I went back in and I'm playing my game. And then I heard something again. And I was like really into the game because I love this game. And I paused it and I'm listening. And I thought, I definitely heard something. And I go and I stick my head out that window again. And he's walking up the fire escape with a KFC. And at the exact same moment, our heads came around the corner and we scared the hell out of each other. Mostly I scared him because I screamed like a little girl. But I screamed because I was playing a zombie game and I keep hearing stuff and it's the middle of the night and it's dark. And I'm like, what is that sound? And it's not like it is now where he would have texted, hey, I'm coming over with KFC, because we didn't have cell phones. What's he going to do? Call my office? So it scared the hell out of me, but I absolutely loved Resident Evil Code Veronica. I don't know if it's the best Resident Evil or not, but I liked it a lot. And the reason I picked that is because the other games that are on this list, I feel like they're really, really good games, but I missed most of them. Like I was going to pick Counter-Strike, but I don't know if it's good or if it was just, it had that gameplay loop that I could play without thinking. You know what I mean? And I would do that a lot. But
I was more of a Team Fortress. Well, so when Counter-Strike was I was more in like Team Fortress camp.
What year did the first Team Fortress, which I never played?
Yeah, first for Quake.
Okay.
But yeah, when I saw Counter-Strike, not that there was like, I wouldn't say that there was a rivalry at all, but I felt like, I don't know, I felt like Team Fortress had more going for it. Like it was just like, especially 2 Fort, the map 2 Fort, I could play 2 Fort forever. And when I saw like other mod, like or total conversion games, I just had more respect for Team Fortress or something at the time. I don't know. I was weird. And I was like, Counter-Strike, it was just like, I don't know. But yeah, Counter-Strike wound up being an ensemble force. I would say that Team Fortress was also seeing that Team Fortress 2, it was also huge. So
yeah,
those two games were just phenomenally giant. But yeah, I would tend to agree with you, Bill. Like you know, you can respect a game for being uber popular and everyone loving it, but I mean, I would, in your shoes, I would also choose Codename Veronica because, like, you know, that's just an awesome story and that's a good feeling. Especially just like, oh yeah, I'm playing a scary game at night and my buddy's coming over with KFC for free. Like that just sounds like an awesome time. Like
it was an awesome time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll never get back to those days of gaming again because of all the bad stuff. But that's okay. You know what's really back to Bummer Town. But you know what? You know what's not a bummer is sitting here and talking to you guys about this stuff. I always have fun with this. If you guys enjoyed this, leave a like below and tell us what are your favorite games that came out in the year 2000. I would love to check out some of those games, especially ones that you feel like are underrepresented. Russ, what are you working on? What videos are coming out this week for you, man?
I actually have no idea. I just finished a video talking about the OLED mod on my Switch Lite. And then, you know, we just had 4th of July and stuff, so I had a couple days off. So I don't know. I'm back in the studio today, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm actually going to do. We'll see. Surprise everyone, I guess.
All right. It's a surprise. It's a secret to everyone. Cary, what are you working on, man? Oh, you just dropped a really, really good video about. Tell people about that video because that's awesome.
This was like multiple weeks and lots of time trying to figure this out in an automated fashion that failed spectacularly many ways. And then I was just like, screw it, we'll do it live. And I did everything manually. So I was just genuinely interested in finding how I could determine actual benchmarks for Switch 2 games. And because it's such a manual process, it takes a long time. It takes me like 10, 20 minutes just to do a 10-second clip of verifying. Like that's how long it takes. So it's a slog. And Cyberpunk has 2 modes. They have a performance mode and a quality mode. So I did those 2, and then I did No Man's Sky, and then I may do others later. But right now, I figured like from where that was, we have a good vantage point of being able to determine like where the Steam Deck sits, both in its normal place of where it runs and trying to line up visually, like image quality wise, of what I'm seeing. And some of the settings for Switch 2 in handheld mode are lower than low.
Just to clarify, because I don't think you actually told anybody what the video is. It was a benchmarks of Switch 2 versus Steam Deck in handheld mode at the same power level. Yeah. So make sure that you guys check that out. I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure people understood what you were saying. Go ahead.
It's there's a lot of people that responded to it really well. Most of the pushback that I'm getting on it is about the loading times. And one of them is from the cartridge. The other one, No Man's Sky, actually does load from onboard storage, which is the fastest. And it's still slower than the Steam Deck OLED. So I don't think that's really doing them any favors insofar as the pushback. But it's not that it's not valid. But I could see them saying, you didn't do Cyberpunk as best you could. I'm not going to buy Cyberpunk, the digital version and the physical version, guys. Like, just not going to do it. Like, I'm just going to buy the physical version. But in any event, that's not to say it's just part and parcel of what is in with a Switch 2, and that's fine. Okay, it's not a big deal. If it 73% slower, whatever. If it's 20 more seconds, deal with it. Right? People are dealing, and it's fine. But one of the things that I found interesting for that was just the level of detail. Like the bartender one was a complete accident, and I was so glad that I found it. I was really just trying to like line stuff up. And in the handheld one, you could literally see his tattoo fading in and out based on
his shirt, right?
Yeah, and his overalls, like the tank top that he had underneath. And I was like, whoa, like that's crazy how like I'm like literally looking at him like, how could this be so low? So I'm like trying to see if I can get that on Steam Deck, and there is no setting to make it that low. Like I can't even make it Switch 2 quality. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just have it be better. And there was like lots of interesting stuff where you could see DLSS really struggling. They're like in terms of image stability and stuff. So not to say that that's bad, because Switch 2 is doing it in 8.6 watts total. And when I put the Steam Deck in there, then you're like, oh wow, it's actually doing great. So it's really a celebration of both of them. It's really not knocking one or the other. Steam Deck OLED is a fantastic console still, and you can get better performance and better image quality than Switch 2. But when you make it go as low as Switch 2 is a low power champion. And it's a great video. The next video I'm working on is Veacher sent me their latest glasses, their Luma Pros, and I've never been a big fan of XR glasses. Like they're like, oh, okay, this is a luxury item and whatever. But these are like the first time that they still don't answer the promise of what they're trying to accomplish. Like the promise is you will wear these glasses all the time and then just clip on like a USB thing and then have AR around you. And that will never happen. That's not this right now. You will not be walking around with these glasses. You'll be
in like a decade from that.
Yeah. You'll be in a seated position. But the clarity of these new Sony OLEDs that are in there is outrageously good. And the one thing that they've been, because this has been working on for so long, all of the stuff that they've done prior is like paying dividends for them now. So they call it their Spacewalker app. And on Windows, I loaded it up, and you can do the 3 virtual screens. And because the Luma glasses have a camera in them, it's spatially aware of it. So I pick my head up and I can go to 3 virtual screens. And I was like, this would have worked. This would have been so much better if I had this when I went to Santa Monica. I could have edited, because I brought my GPU Win Max and I did everything on my Win Max on an 11-inch screen.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I was like, man, this would have been so much better if I just had these things. So now I'm in a position where I'm like, man, I need to find like a really like a foldable keyboard and a small mouse. And I can bring my GPU Win Mini, which has 64 gigs of RAM, and I could do my editing on that thing because it's an HX370. It's a monster, and I can have this little thing and virtual screens to do editing for me. So I'm really starting to see like the productivity side of these, because it's just so much better in terms of visual quality of what it is. Also, the mobile dock is kind of awesome because it works on Switch 2, but because when you use the mobile dock, it puts the Switch 2 into docked mode. So you can portably be using a Switch 2 in the best fidelity possible. So I was like playing Cyberpunk, and I'm looking up this. I'm like, wait, what the hell? What the hell? Like, I was playing in performance mode, right? And I'm looking at the guy, and his tattoo's not fading away. All of the effects look better. I'm like, what the hell is happening right now? I just did a video on this. I know this shouldn't look this good. And I was like, oh, it's docked. This is the dock settings I'm playing right now. So it's like, if you wanted to play docked portably, this is one way that you could do that. And arguably, the displays on these OLED panels are better than the display on the Switch 2. So I've been absolutely loving these things. So that's the video I have coming Tuesday. And in a surprising twist, I was like, oh, I have to do these things again. But I'm actually finding that all the things that they've done in the past and where it is right now, I'm really liking it. I'm really liking it a lot.
Yeah, so head on over to youtube.com/thefox to check out that. Head on over to youtube.com/retrogamecore to check out whatever secret thing he's working on. And before you leave and go anywhere else, make sure that you subscribe right here at youtube.com/NerdNest. And if you are listening this on your favorite podcatcher or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, leave a review, leave a like, and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. But from the Nerd Nest, that's it for today's episode. Stay rad, everybody. Thanks for watching.